Good everybody. Today I'm talking to Meghdud Roy Chowdhury, who's the founder of Technopreneur Surrogate Ventures Private Limited. Good day, Meghdud. How are you?
Very well. How about yourself, Tony?
Good.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
for
Thank you.
having me.
You are most welcome. Thank you for your time. And Meghdud, are you happy for me to move into our first question?
Please do. Looking forward to this.
Thank you. Meghdud, can you please share a little about yourself, the place you were born, your education, your passion, the things that you enjoy doing, and one thing the public might not be aware of?
Sure thing. So I was actually born in Bilaspur, Chhattisgarh. I used to be part of Madhya Pradesh before. My grandfather was in the eastern coal fields, so we were moving a lot around in the coal fields before my family finally settled down in Calcutta. And I spent most of my early years, my formative years in Calcutta itself. I have a very special bond with the city. Anybody who has ever seen any of my social media profiles will know that I'm very fond of the city, and I've made it my life's goal. Everyone, I think, more than passions, I'm not a kid anymore. Passions are good to have, but I think we need to work with missions at this point. Is the point that in my life that I'm at. My mission is to redefine the city, and in terms of its relevance, in terms of where the city is headed with its education, with the entrepreneurship ecosystem. And I'm really passionate about my city, if that's what you ask. So I think when your passions and your mission come together, usually interesting things happen. I studied my school. I was at Birla High School, then I was in St. Lawrence High School in Calcutta. So most of my schooling has been here. Then I studied computer science engineering in the city as well. But then by the time I was in second year of college, I figured out that I had aspirations in the entrepreneurship space. I've always known deep down inside that I was going to be an entrepreneur, coming from a family of overachieving entrepreneurs. So it's something that gets passed on through the blood, I guess. But I started my first business when I was 19 years old, second year of college. I started a music recording studio, which I think to this date remains one of the things that I'm most proud of having achieved. Produced more than 2,000 artists in these last 10 years. And, the studio has grown from strength to strength. Really still very fond of it. End up going there once every while to check up on what's happening. But it's really like a self-sustaining business now. It's more than a business, I guess, another place of passion for me. I really enjoy music production. I've never had formal training in it, but I've got good ears, I guess, so that helps. Other than that, after I finished my 4 years of computer science engineering, I went to HEC Paris to study business. I had an absolutely amazing time there, met my soul tribe in France. Met my wife in France, in fact, the person that I'm married to today. I also did 2 exchange semesters, one at Stanford University in the United States, in California, and one in Tel Aviv University in Israel, studying intercultural negotiations, international business, and working with lots of startups, fast-growing startups in these entrepreneurship ecosystems as well. So yeah, that's pretty much about my beginnings. And one thing that people might not know about me is I love cats and I hate horror movies with the same passion that a lot of people might not know about.
Good on you, Meghdud. Good on you. And I think that is one thing that I've been amazed by. When I looked into your profile, is because you had this wealth of experience, global experience. And I knew that, you would be able to bring that cognitive diversity into your decision-making processes, when you, in the ventures you're heading. So thank you so much for sharing that. And moving on to our next question, can you please share about your work experiences before you started Technopreneurs Surrogate Ventures Private Limited, and what lessons have you brought forth from your previous work experiences into TSVPL?
Interesting. Okay, so TSVPL was one of the companies I founded after I came back to India in 2017. So very early 2017 is when I started TSVPL. Before that, so again, as I spoke about my studio before, that was my first actual practical work experience, building my own company in the music space. And from that particular venture, what I learned was very simple, that I was better with people than I was with coding. It just, that was my first lesson. And another thing I learned was, I guess, networks are really very, very important. So I was already building a lot of networks in the music space way before I started my studio. As a young kid in the city of joy, I think I made it my absolute, goal to make sure that I knew every musician there was to know. And that actually helped me scale my business very fast in the beginning. So I already had like a steady client base, and I figured out that, hey, there weren't enough places which were recording independent artists. And that's why I made the studio, and it scaled pretty soon. After that, I moved to France, right after I finished my 4 years of bachelor's in computer science. In France, I actually did work with a couple of companies as well. I used so in my second year of being in France, I took a year off from school, and I interned, in fact, at a company called Leaders League, which was the equivalent of a Legal 500 or Chambers and Partners, if you've heard of any of these companies. They're legal rating firms. I used to take care of their international office. Again, very interesting story there. I don't think a lot of people know this story, but I got that job in a very funny way. I was still at HEC at this point, for 6 months before this, actually. And I had gone to meet the president or the CEO, I guess, of the firm, because he used to be an alumni of HEC, and I went to him seeking funds for my society. I told him, hey, I need 10,000 euros. We have this massive celebration coming up, and you being an HEC alumni, you know how important this is to us, etc., etc. I think we had a great conversation, and he ended up giving me a job. I never went to him for a job. He said, maybe why don't you come work with me? But I was like, that's bizarre. I didn't come here for a job. He said, yeah, that doesn't matter. If at any point of time you do need a job, let me know, hit me up. You can set up my international office, etc. That was great. I had a great working experience. I later ended up going and working with him because I needed to clear some credits for my internships. And I had a great time, 6 months in a company where I was the only non-native French speaker. So everybody else were native French speakers pretty much. And one thing that I learned there was that if you have to get by in an environment where people are very different from you, you need to adapt. You need to be good at adapting. In a company where everybody was speaking French, me being the only non-French speaking person, I had to pick up the language very fast because, at the end of the day, be working in any company, you need to gel with the people around you. You need to be able to contribute, not just in terms of work, but in terms of the life. And I don't know if you've ever worked with French companies. They have a very vibrant social life within French companies in general. So, I made it my goal to learn the language enough to be able to communicate and to be able to, get closer to my colleagues. And that really helped. Even now, I'm really glad that the time I spent at Leaders League was instrumental in my foundational French. So that was, again, a good learning. I also worked at a robotics lab in Aachen in Germany. I was doing business development for them in Southeast Asia. Lots of learnings there. I used to organize trips for young students, college students going to Germany to study mechatronics mostly. I learned a lot about the field of mechatronics. I also realized I would never work in the field of mechatronics or any other engineering field because it's not my thing. I enjoyed doing business development, and I've always enjoyed the customer facing or the people facing businesses and not the instrument facing businesses. So yeah, did a bunch of other things. Also, at some point, I just got tired of all of it, left for Prague in Czech Republic for an indefinite period of time and started working at a hostel because I wanted to figure out what it would mean without, if I was in an environment where I was not the intellectually capable kind. I was more of I was basically, a happiness manager for a hostel in Prague for a while. And I think that taught me a lot of things as well. That sometimes happiness really comes from within when you're doing something you enjoy. It doesn't have to be working at a firm which pays you a lot of money. I was making a fair bit of money even as an intern before or at any of the other companies. But the time that I spent in Prague working at a hostel, in giving my skills as a social media manager or something, or organizing parties, whatever I was doing, it made me very happy from deep down inside. So even if it didn't pay me very much. So yeah, I think sometimes we just need to let go. Sometimes we need to also indulge in self-care. I think is something I learned from that experience. Went back to school again to France, did a bunch of certificates, primarily in digital transformation, that space and business analytics and stuff for companies. Came back to India in 2017. That's when I started Technopreneurs Surrogate.
Excellent. Meghdut, thank you for taking us on that journey, from India to France and Germany, and now you're back in India. So thank you. That was very encouraging and interesting to hear. And Meghdut, moving on to our next question, can you please tell me when did you start TSVPL and what was the inspiration behind this entrepreneurial venture?
Sure. So I started TSVPL, as I just mentioned right before, in the beginning of 2017. I think the inspiration was primarily from the fact that I was working with a lot of startups when I was in when I was in France, when I was in the US, and when I was in Israel. So I did not mention those in my work experiences because these were things I was doing on the side while I was still studying. They were not dedicated work experiences. But it's interesting. So when I was in Stanford, I started a company. Again, as we know, the Silicon Valley is the hotbed for entrepreneurship. And I was very, very lucky, I guess. I got to meet some of my inspirations in life, some people that I've looked up to, some icons in the world of entrepreneurship. So Guy Kawasaki was one of my mentors for the first startup that I made there. It's called Peer Stalker. We had Steve Blank on board as one of our investors ready to put in money into the company. And, it's really one degree of separation in Silicon Valley. You can meet anybody you want to. If you have a good idea, if you have a good startup. Worked on that for about 8 months and really understood how the startup ecosystem works. Met with so many venture capitalists, investors, other inspiring entrepreneurs, day in and day out. And I figure, by this time I was already thinking, this is early 2015. I was already thinking, there's so much to be done in India because I remember when I had left, when I first created my first company, actually, there was no infrastructure, not infrastructure. So there was no ecosystem support as such. So, everyone was on their own. They were building their businesses in silos. They were building their companies in silos. And then after this, I ended up going to Israel for my other exchange semester. I was there for about 6 months. And I was working with Rise Tel Aviv for a project that I was doing. And Rise actually was hosting it used to host, I think they still do, the Techstars program, which is a fintech incubation program, which is funded by the Barclays Bank. And that was a rage back then. I don't know what the situation of that is now, but Techstars is still pretty well known. And because I was working with a lot of the Israeli entrepreneurs, I was looking at them. I was trying to figure out how the ecosystem in Israel works. I figured there was so much governmental funding, governmental support from the 8200 EISP incubator, from other wealthy Jewish people across the world who were willing to give back to society in terms of funding startups. You realize that's the reason why Israel right now is the fastest growing startup ecosystem in the world. And all of these learnings, I think, when you meet so many inspiring people, when, I was organizing these meets called One Salon, where I'd get like 30 very smart people into a room, get an excellent speaker. And all these 30 other people had no clue of anything what the other person was going to talk about. And ended up having like an amazing conversation for 4, 5, 6 hours and have a party together. And, that these kinds of experiences really bolstered my faith in my ability as a community leader, I guess, that, I can be in a new city where I don't even speak the local language, but I can make people move. I can make things move. I can create value in, irrespective of wherever I am. So yeah, that's when I came back to India, I figured, hey, you know what? The east of India is really lacking in terms of its entrepreneurship ecosystem. There needs to be some work that needs to go into building that up from scratch, which is why TSBPL happened. That was, yeah. So accumulation of multiple experiences and learnings, which pushed me to start that in early 2017.
Excellent, Mehdood. One thing that stands out as you share that, it's not something that you just woke up one day and thought, okay, I need to, start something. It's something, that has been building up in your mind, isn't it? Like, you were in France, you were in Germany, you said you were in Israel. So you were observing, you were trying to interact with people, getting all that knowledge and information. And then when you came back to India, you kind of looked at, as you said, Eastern India, there's nothing much happening there. Why don't I leverage all my skills and knowledge into that space and add value, for entrepreneurs? So that's amazing. And I think, when I speak to a lot of people, like, one thing that comes across to me is like when they travel overseas, from their space, things that, or the space they grow up in, they kind of look at things with a different perspective, because they have much more, learnings from different parts of the world, because people in one part of the world looks at a problem quite differently to probably people in another part of the world. So you kind of like, have that variation in thought process that you are, accustomed to when you're living outside. So bringing all those learnings into, your startup, which is, TSBPL, it's very encouraging and positive to hear from you. So thank you for sharing that. And moving on to our next question, Mehdood, Could you please share some insights into TSVPL's business model, and how is TSVPL different from other co-working or incubation spaces in India?
So when we started TSVPL, it was not even supposed to be an incubator. So as if you hear the name, it's Technopreneurs Surrogate Ventures. You might ask, and anyone might ask, what does Surrogate Ventures mean? It was envisioned to be a space to provide second or third generation entrepreneurs who have money but don't have time to create a space, to create their own startups, and we provide HR support, a co-working space, and all of that. So it was a co-working space plus model geared towards helping second and third generation entrepreneurs to build out their companies, right? Because most of these people, they don't have a lot of time. They're probably working with their parents. So we were there to provide the technical support for that. But then I think the model, I think we've disrupted ourselves so many times at this point, I can't even remember. But so we've been everything from a co-working space. We still are in certain parts. We've expanded. We've provided ecosystem support to technical fests and entrepreneurship fests across the country. So we come in as ecosystem partners or incubation partners for IITs, NITs, IIMs across the country. We help these entrepreneurship cells also grow bigger. We help them organize entrepreneurship festivals, entrepreneurship awareness camps. So it's also an advisory and a consultancy in a way. We also have the incubation facilities, as we mentioned before, tied up with various organizations and ecosystem players. We also have something called a pre-incubation program, which is primarily for Techno India Group students. I think here at this point, I should mention Techno India Group because it's a very central part of what I do. So Techno India Group is actually one of the largest educational groups in the country with about 80,000 students currently, almost 1 million alumni. And this group was started by my father, first generation entrepreneur, who's known as a pioneer for education in the East and perhaps at this point in the whole country. And so the pre-incubation program that we have at Technopreneurs is geared towards providing entrepreneurship support to the students of this educational group. So we have schools, colleges, universities, and lots of incubation centers as well. But the incubation centers are run separately. So Technopreneurs sort of comes in as a consultancy to Techno India Group as well to build out its students' entrepreneurial abilities. So pre-incubation program again, and then we have the incubation program. One of the things that we've just recently started doing, and I think I'm personally very excited about it, we have a new vertical, and it's like a technology business incubator for startups working from outside of the country who want to go to market in India. It's something that I don't know if you've heard of Mark Cuban. If you're in the entrepreneurship space, you probably do. Have Mark Cuban, somebody in the US who's, he was in Shark Tank as one of the investors. Of course, that's what he's known for. He's made tons of money and a lot of impact by helping international startups go to market in the United States. And so this is a model that we recently started incorporating, and we already have 3 clients. We started this 2 months ago, and we already have 3 clients, and we're helping them understand the Indian market and go to market in India. We're setting up their India offices. And I think it's going to be something quite interesting because India's middle class has been growing so rapidly, and there's so much work to be done in terms of providing them better services. So yeah, let's see. I think this is something I'm personally quite excited about.
Exciting. And thank you, Meghdut, for sharing that. I personally think, when you said that about the new vertical you've started, that go-to-market strategy, I think, if you could actually open that door wide, as you venture into that space, because one of the biggest hurdles, I think, for overseas businesses coming into India, people talk about red tape and all those kind of things, but I think there's a lack of hand holding, you know what I mean? In the sense that, there's not much information out there in terms of establishing a business, market feasibility studies or hand holding, trying to navigate the entire space. So I personally think if you could actually, build that space up for businesses to come into India, especially tech startups, I think there's a lot of opportunity there, and good on you for actually implementing it. And the gentleman you said, who is actually doing it in the US for businesses outside US coming into US. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there. And Meghdut, all the best with that vertical you have created.
And, Thank you very much.
And moving on to our next question. So has the current COVID-19, so it's going to be, we're going to on a somber note now. So has the current COVID-19 pandemic affected TSVPL's operations? If yes, what have you done to mitigate its effect? If no, How were you able to ride the storm?
Oh, it affected it very badly, actually. So, considering the three programs that we have, of course, the pre incubation programs did not happen physically at all this year. We had to move the incubation programs online, which meant that it cut into our bottom lines, and we had to incorporate some other, online platforms to do our incubation. We did not have our own platforms. It was also an opportunity, of course, because we ended up partnering with Bridge for Billions, which is an online incubator and mentorship platform that is based out of Madrid in Spain. And of course, if you're partnering with an international agency like that or an international platform like that, it eats into your bottom line, and you're not able to generate as much cash as you would like to at a time like this. Of course, that got affected. The co-working space model obviously went to zero completely because there was nobody outside on the streets, complete lockdown, so everyone was working from home. And I think the new vertical that I told you about was in fact what I did to try and come out of it. The whole point was, hey, none of the regular stuff is working anymore. We'd have to probably shut down this business if it continues like this for a few more months. So we figured, hey, you know what? Let's start something which nobody else is doing, and have, because of my connections, as I've mentioned before, and you also took note of that, because of my connections in various European countries, also in Israel and in the US, amongst the startup ecosystem. I've been doing this pro bono for a very long time already in helping businesses enter the Indian markets, but now I feel like I might as well do it as a full-fledged business under TSVPL. So quite excited about that. Let's see. Probably going to take a little bit of time to scale. There's company incorporations take a lot of time in India. We have a lot of legal stuff to be taken care of because you're creating wholly owned subsidiaries of international companies. International companies can't fully own companies in India because they have to have Indian individuals. So that's where also I guess I come in as a pivotal piece. This business for now is still very dependent on me for the resources, for the connections, as well as being the person sort of in charge of the India operations, which means it's not super scalable. Like if I wanted to do this for 300 companies, it's not going to happen right now. But eventually we'll figure out a way. Let's see how the first three companies go. That's kind of the target we've taken for the next 6 months. We're going to have three companies grow and then see where we can go with it. Let's see if any of the three actually give us good returns. It's something that we can definitely find other ways of scaling, find other people like me, or end up cloning myself.
Excellent, excellent, Meghdad. Thank you for sharing that. And moving on to our next question. Moving forward, what are your plans for TSVPL?
Yeah, that this is the only plan right now. Of course, bolstering the existing models because right now markets have started opening up. In fact, we just filled up, I think, 40 seats in the last 2 days, so which is good. Now companies are coming back again. New companies are looking for new spaces. We also, in fact, there's another thing that we do, which I did not mention. We also provide consultancy for other individuals to open incubators. And a lot of people might say, hey, you know what, you're just increasing your own competition. I agree, but I also firmly disagree because we are still such a small ecosystem in the East. We need like 100 more incubators and solid incubators. If they know, if there's going to be new kids on the block, I want them to be not making the same mistakes I made early on. So we also help other incubators and accelerators grow. In the building that I'm in right now, it's called Offbeat CCU. It's a school of the future that I built a couple of years ago. It's not really related to TSVPL as such, but in this particular building, we give out spaces to people also to incubate their own incubators. We all have a couple of incubators running here. So here, instead of bringing my own incubator, I decided to be an aggregator of other incubators. So, it's just, you got to try out different things, I guess. And here even the kitchen, we have a massive kitchen downstairs, about 1,000 square foot kitchen, because we service a cafe, we service a rooftop and a restaurant. So we are actually getting food entrepreneurs and home cooks from this other incubator to run a part of the kitchen, because we also believe that you got to put your money where your mouth is. It's important that I'm pushing the entrepreneurship story forward for the East, for everyone, all kinds of entrepreneurs. So why should it only be restricted to tech? So we figure, why don't we let food entrepreneurs run our kitchen? We'll see how that goes. We have currently 4 people running that. Another new venture that we also started as part of TSVPL is a media lab. So it's a content creation and media lab, but it's not for ourselves. Like, we don't want to reap benefits of it. It's for other influencers and social media marketers and people who have massive followings. So we have a lot of these pages on the internet. You have 100,000 followers or 500,000 followers. And these influencers essentially are people who are driving the content, but they don't really know the business models and how to generate money off of it. So what we're doing now is we've started a cohort of media ventures only, where we take three of these media ventures at any given point of time, take them through a 3-month program, and help them build out their own financial models, business models, projections for the next 3 years, help them set up their companies through legal incorporation, help them with tax support and all of that, and also have a media lab which supports their content creation, because if they can create better content, they can pick up better clients, and that's good business for everybody, right? So we'd be owning small stakes in all of these little companies and eventually help them grow. And if they grow, we grow. So that's another little. It's not a new model as such. It's still an incubation model, but it's an incubation model which is focused only on media startups and new age media startups, which is social media influencers and social media marketing. So yeah, that's another new thing.
Excellent, Meghdut. Very, very, very encouraging, to be honest with you, because your thinking is out of the box. You know what I mean? Like, this is not what I think an average entrepreneur in India would be thinking of, even if they have capital to invest. Because sometimes I think people have capital, but they don't have ideas. You know what I mean? And I think in your case, because you have this global experience, that you can tap into, you've seen the wider world, what's happening out there. You have that wealth of experience you can draw on and that knowledge from there, and then try to bring some aspects of it into the Indian ecosystem. You know what I mean? The idea of actually encouraging other incubators, I think, an average business in India would not think about it, because they would, as you said, they would look at the other incubators as competitors. But you're trying to, create value or competition, so that, as competition improves, like the quality probably would improve, of the offerings as well. So that is really encouraging. And I'm really encouraged by all the things that you've shared, Meghdut, and all the best with, all the things that you're planning to do into the future. So moving on to our next question. Meghdut, with your global experience, how do you see Indian entrepreneurs faring in comparison to their peers from Western countries?
This is a difficult question because it's not written in black and white. I think it's entrepreneurship for everybody is a very personal journey. I have seen amazing entrepreneurs in India. I've seen amazing entrepreneurs outside. I think it's really, really personal, and I cannot generalize whether I prefer working with one over the other. One thing I do want to focus on, though, is I think we Indians are better at frugal entrepreneurship. We are better at jugaad. We are better at innovating with very little resources. It's something that our Western counterparts probably struggle with a little bit, because we grew up from places where we didn't have a lot. So of course we have to make do with what we don't have, or whatever little we have. And so that, I think, makes us better entrepreneurs. If you look at even the COVID crisis, we went from not producing a single PPE kit to becoming the largest producer of PPE kits in the world as a country collectively. So I think there's a huge scope for entrepreneurship in the country. We're just waking up to the Western meaning of entrepreneurship. But I think it's something that's, dhanda is something that's very integral to the average, most Gujarati families, Hindi families, Marwari families. We've been doing that for a while. I don't think in Bengalis it's a very common thing. Us as Bengalis, we don't make great entrepreneurs. Not usually. Hopefully, I will not have to say this again in a few years. Hopefully, my work will leave behind at least some amount of legacy where it inspires other young Bengali kids to pick up entrepreneurship rather than picking up jobs. That's something that I want to focus on. One thing that because I praised Indian entrepreneurs in this aspect, I want to praise my Western counterparts on another aspect, which I find is pretty common there, is that attention to detail, I guess, is something that I find quite unique. I don't have it myself. I know I'm not an attention to detail oriented person. I'm not a detail oriented person in general. I'm a big picture person. I understand global visions. I understand how things connect with each other, and I'm very good at kind of seeing things, taking a step back and seeing things from the top. But which is why I prefer working with a lot of Western entrepreneurs, more than entrepreneurs, intrapreneurs, I would say, people who are working with me, who think like entrepreneurs but are still working with me. And I really enjoy that, because attention to detail, I think, is very, very important as well. So I think it's a deadly combination when you have like a good big picture guy sort of leading the team, and then you have a lot of people who are very attention to detail focused. That helps in creating a great company, I believe. So yeah. But having said that, again, these are bit of blunt generalizations. There's great entrepreneurs everywhere. We just have
Excellent, Mehdood, for sharing that. And moving on from that question about entrepreneurship and entrepreneurs in India and the West, I think you mentioned two important things. One is the jugaad, the word that's been thrown around. It's becoming a global word now. I think a lot of people even in the West use jugaad, and in the Western perspective, the attention to detail. But if we elaborate a bit more on that, so I'll jump on into the next question with that. So, what learnings do you think are there from the entrepreneurial ecosystem in India for entrepreneurs from other parts of the world?
I think jugaad would definitely be one of the things that, I'm definitely not the first person to talk about this. Navi Raju has been talking about it for when I was a kid, I guess. I've read his books on frugal innovation. In fact, I wrote my thesis. My master's thesis is on how open innovation and frugal innovation models can actually end up resulting in mass innovation in resource-constrained economies like India. And I did my research and my case studies across three of the primary industries, so food and beverage, education, healthcare. And I created this sort of BCG-style matrix to figure out what percentage of open innovation and frugal innovation work if you're looking at creating mass impact, creating impact for hundreds of thousands of people. And I think it's definitely something that is a very Indian concept. I don't know if a lot of people are aware, but the term jugaad itself is the name of a car. It's actually in Rajasthan. There was in some villages when you got off a train and you had to go into the interiors of the village and you had suitcases and stuff on you. It was very difficult to travel with them. So what local entrepreneurs, let's call them, started doing was take these carts, like big planks of wood, put four wheels on them, an engine from a tractor, and just put all the stuff on it and carry those things and the people through the villages. And that's how the term jugaad was coined, and that's become like a global phenomenon because we're now talking about creating an actual recipe for jugaad is what the West is trying to emulate, I think. And I think there's definitely a lot of work to be done in that space. I am a huge believer in it. I've never even if I do have resources, I try to have a very nominal approach to entrepreneurship, very frugal approach to entrepreneurship. I would believe in not spending just because I have the means to. And on top of that, my wife is a firm believer in the sustainable way of life. She studied that. She's professionally social impact person from the business perspective, and she consults various organizations on how to be more sustainable within their own business lines as well. So from that perspective and from that sort of history, I cannot think of being an entrepreneur who is not frugal in nature. So hopefully it's something that the world starts accepting more as well. I hope they start becoming more sustainable in their habits, because we've seen through this pandemic that no matter how big your businesses are, if you're not planning your businesses with 2-3 years at least in mind, when something like this could happen again, we're going to be nowhere. Literally a tiny virus which nobody can even see with their bare eyes took the entire world by storm and made us go to sleep for like 6 months. So yeah, a lot of rethinking needs to be done, not just by entrepreneurs, by all kinds of professionals and individuals across the world. And hopefully, these kind of experiences will teach us on how to be better entrepreneurs and how to be better professionals and individuals.
Thank you, Meghdut, for sharing your point. And a subsequent question to that is: are there lessons that Indian entrepreneurs, can they learn from entrepreneurs from other parts of the world?
There's so many stories of that. I think here I must make a point on business models which are borrowed from other countries. I think India is very good at it. We saw an Uber and we created an Ola. It was very contextual to India. We created an Indian version and we made it big. It's something that I think it's not the first time we've done. We're very good at emulating others in general and making it our own. I don't see there's any problem with that. I think at the end of the day, it's all about the execution, right? Because people can have ideas left, right, and center. If they're not able to execute the ideas, then all of those ideas are worthless. So it's good that we've seen a lot of shared ideas from the Western world being copied in India and copied successfully. So there's nothing wrong with that. At the end of the day, everything we do has been done before by somebody smarter than us somewhere in the world. So I think it's also the acceptance of that which makes us better entrepreneurs, the acceptance that there's somebody who's already doing it better, but we're just trying to do it our way. And hopefully India will also, I did mention that that's something I deeply appreciate about Western entrepreneurs is their attention to detail. And hopefully if we Indian entrepreneurs are able to incorporate that within our business lines and within our own businesses, I think we would create better businesses and more long-term focused businesses. I think one big mistake we Indian entrepreneurs make sometimes is we do things for on short term for immediate benefit, for immediate returns. But entrepreneurship is a long game. You have to be in it for the long term. It's not something that you put on your LinkedIn profile. CEO of XYZ company doesn't translate to you being a successful entrepreneur. Writing 5 inspirational posts that you got inspiration yourself from other people on the internet is not becoming a successful entrepreneur. It's about striving with it day in and day out, being there for your team, pulling the whole team up at the times of crisis, being a leader who leads by example and by creating a vision for a better tomorrow. I think that's very, very important. So hopefully, yeah, there's so much to learn from everyone, not just Indian entrepreneurs, from Western entrepreneurs and vice versa. There's things to learn from your local chai wala. There's things to learn from the guy who makes chow mein every morning in that the little shed by your office. There's things to learn from everyone. And if we keep our eyes and ears open, I think we can take back stories and learnings from every little experience that we have in life. So yeah.
Excellent, excellent, Meghdud. Thank you for sharing that. And Meghdud, moving on to our last question. So, what are the life and business lessons that you would like to share with someone who is planning to start a business or venture in India?
This is, I think, something that I speak about quite a lot because I love talking to young kids who want to be entrepreneurs or on the brink of entrepreneurship, who might even sometimes not know that this is what they're trying to do, but they want to be self-sufficient, they want to be independent in life. They want to create value in society. So one of the things I tell them most often is don't do it because it's cool. Because right now entrepreneurship is a huge buzz, and you see so many companies getting bought and sold left, right, and center, raising funds, raising money, angel investors, venture capitalists. It seems very cool, very trendy. But again, as I said before, it's a hard and arduous path. It takes a lot of willpower to wake up every morning and keep doing it, especially when we are going through a world where we just got completely changed, almost overnight because of a virus. I think now is the best time to be an entrepreneur, if I'm being honest. At the end of every big crisis lies innovation. I think tomorrow's narrative for a world which can be a bit more future proof, I think is that entire power lies with its entrepreneurs. And I hopefully will get to see some interesting stories come out of the pandemic as well. Some I've already seen, a lot more hopefully to come in the days to come. And it's never been easier than now to be an entrepreneur, because when my father became an entrepreneur, he had no support. He had no ecosystem whatsoever. He was a young, ambitious kid who had been ousted from Bangladesh, moved to India in 71 to, with his family. And back then, he did not have any support whatsoever. And yet he created this massive educational group, and he started that entire thing in his garage, teaching kids computers in his garage and having a big vision, and look where it's gotten him. So every time somebody says, hey, you know what, I don't have funds, I don't have resources, I don't have capital to start a company, I take my father's example. He didn't have nothing. He didn't even know anybody. He was an immigrant from a different country who came in and started something in his garage, and he took it to scale because he believed in his product, he believed in himself, and he could show others how to dream. I think entrepreneurs need to be able to be people who can make others dream. I think that's such a big quality we don't talk about enough, because at the end of the day, all of us are here on the earth for a purpose, and we need to find our own purpose. And some people are better at finding their purposes than others. So for those who do, if you are able to find your purpose and you are able to convince others that your purpose is worth investing in, you're done. That's all there is to it. And then again, of course, sticking with it year after year, because it's not something that you just wake up one day and you do and it's done. It takes time and effort. And it's like a plant. It's like a sapling. You got to water it every day. You got to tend for it, give it sunlight, and hopefully it's going to grow into a big, strong tree someday. That's my only advice I get. I guess don't be in it for the short term. It might seem to be fun in the beginning, but you're going to get tired out real soon. It's a very, very tough job. So if you don't want to be in it for the long term, might as well join a corporate and have a nice lofty life, do 9 to 5, be happy with your kids and your wife at home, and or your husband, and you're probably going to be very happy as well if that's the life that you want. But if you want to be an entrepreneur, keep in mind there's probably not going to be a lot of barriers between your private and your personal and professional life. There's going to be no barriers whatsoever. You're going to be working well into your weekends, well into your holidays, because there is no holiday for an entrepreneur. It's your whole life. So yeah, good luck if you're starting it, and if you need some help, if you're looking to connect with somebody who can help you, reach out to some people, or you just need advice on your pitch deck, hit me up. My name is Meghdut Roy Chaudhary. You can find me on LinkedIn, just like Tony did. Cheers.
Excellent, Meghdut. Thank you so much for your time and that all the things that you shared. One thing that is very encouraging, Meghdut, you come across as a well-rounded person. In the sense that you have your father to look up to, all the struggles that he has actually gone through in establishing his business. So in a way, you don't have any excuse because, he has done the hard yard. He has actually established something for you to look at and say, son, if I have done it, you can do it, or you can do it better. So, it's amazing that you have your dad as an example. And then you had this global experience where you went to places, and it's good, you split your master's studies in different countries. That's an amazing strategy that you had in place, Israel, Germany, and France. So you had all those learnings. Sometimes people think, why do I have to travel to all these places to do my master's? But then I think, maybe you had in the back of your mind, I can get this opportunity to interact with people or colleagues or academics from different places. So it gives me an opportunity to learn things, with a different perspective. So that was an excellent decision. And with all those learnings, you didn't actually think of I don't know what the circumstances were. You could probably have settled somewhere overseas, but you actually came back to India and you said, okay, I have all this wealth of knowledge and experience. I'm standing on the shoulder of my dad, who's actually been an entrepreneur and established this, educational empire or, business in India. Let me actually take it on from there, maybe pivot or, iterate and make it even much more stronger and bigger, and it's very encouraging. Meghdut, thank you so much for actually coming back to the place you love, Calcutta, and then, wanting to make a difference in that city. So that is very positive. And I also think that, the business idea you shared with me for TSVPL, that new vertical that you're creating, whereby you're creating an opportunity or space for businesses or entrepreneurs from overseas to explore that opportunity in India. And I would say, it's more or less like a hand-holding process, taking them on that journey and, opening doors for them. I think there's a lot of scope for that. And I wish you the very best, Meghdut, with all the projects you're doing. I'm sure we just touched on one business that you're involved in. You said you had 7 other verticals or businesses that you're engaged in. If you talk on it, it might take a week. But thank you for all the insights you shared. I wish you the very best, and we'll keep in touch. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tony.